welcome back to the Dice Odyssey, or I would say a special edition of the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kas.
I'm Bryan.
And we are here today to kind of talk a little bit about, reminisce about Stan Lee. I think there's probably a billion videos already on YouTube. Why not add another one into the mix, right? It'll get lost in the shuffle.
Influenced so many people's lives, so...
Yeah, we got to talk about it. It may not be what you would think of as directly board game related, but really it is. Because a lot of I would say, geek culture came out of, and Stan Lee was so instrumental in pushing geek culture to the rest of the world. I mean, this man's touched how many lives? Millions?
Yes.
Billions, maybe? I mean, so many lives. He died today at the age of 95. I still hadn't heard the news report exactly about what happened, but it might have been a heart attack or something. Yeah, and it's really heartbreaking, and we really wanted to come together and just talk about how we feel about him.
For it.
What?
We blame Thanos for it.
Yes, we do. But we really wanted to come talk about how we felt like he influenced our lives and just the kind of person he was. And it wasn't just, we loved his cameos in movies and stuff, but if you saw him at conventions or you saw how he reacted to people and talked to people, the man was a class act. And there's very, very few of those in the world anymore. That people that can
especially that they've influenced so many people, that they've climbed to that stature, that they're still so down to earth to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Not many people are like that when they get that high up.
No, they're not.
So I mean, just everybody's touched, and it's just hard to imagine somebody at that level being that down to earth or being willing to meet with fans and have that kind of relationship with fans.
Yeah, and like I said, there's so few of those kind of people now. And especially just the kind of gentleman that he was. How you always looked in a Marvel movie, you were always kind of subconsciously, even if you didn't think he was there, you were always looking for that cameo. And now, unless they do a CGI, which would be terrible, I guess.
It'd still be paying homage and a tribute to him.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like in the Star Wars movie in Rogue One. Yeah, Rogue One.
Yeah, well, some people liked it and some people didn't. So, there are going to be people on both sides of that. But I always love seeing Stan Lee. You could be watching a Marvel movie, and most of them are pretty lighthearted in a lot of ways. But you could watch some of them that could be really dark and deep, like, the Infinity War. And you saw Stan Lee, what is the bus driver?
Yeah, you even got him in Deadpool. Something that's R-rated like that, and you got Deadpool.
Yeah, and so... Yeah, we really gonna miss this guy. He was just a class act, and I'd say, Bryan, how did he influence your life growing up?
Read all the Marvel comics, DC comics, but Marvel really inspired me, especially in middle school era. I started collecting the Marvel comic cards, and all that really got me into wanting to draw these comic book characters, and inspired me to kind of start down my own comic book path to an extent.
Right.
So inspired me to be more creative and more imaginative.
And you draw.
Yeah.
You do a lot of sketches and things like that.
Not as much as I used to. I do more CGI stuff now than anything.
Yeah, like our intro and our outro and things of that nature. Yeah.
But, it inspires so much. It inspires a lot of, as far as story goes, as far as, what I like to read and go forth on that, and, just things I like to think of.
Yeah.
And create.
He was an innovative genius in many ways, a brilliant mastermind of story and character. And the thing, I used to listen to a lot of his, and I'm going to be listening to a lot of them from this point on now, a lot of his interviews with people where he would talk about how he created characters. And he had that real gravelly voice, he's like, wow, and I love that about him, because he had that real deep, gravelly voice that you think is like a tough guy, but he's such a gentle spirit, and I really enjoyed him talking about how he created Peter Parker and how he created his love interest and things like that. I was I'm still a massive Spider-Man fan, but I was a massive Spider-Man fan growing up, reading the comics. One of my favorite series was Maximum Carnage, with Carnage and Venom and Spider-Man doing everything he could to stop Carnage and things like that. I read a ton of his X-Men books in the 90s.
X-Men, mainly mine. Wolverine, X-Men.
Yes, Wolverine's one of my all-time. He's probably my top 5 favorite characters easily. And I'm talking about, if I'm saying Marvel alone, maybe top 3. You know what I mean? He's up there. Spider-Man's up there.
So since we're talking about that, so what would be your favorite? What's on your top three? Who's your number one? Where are the top three?
Oh man, well,
who would you put number one?
It would be hard for me to do that. Wouldn't that be hard for you? Like, do you have could you name a number one?
I can tell you my number one would be Wolverine.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
He's probably my number one. He's at least close.
Wolverine, Captain
America is awesome. Captain America, it's a fight between him and Wolverine, honestly, for number one. The only reason is Wolverine, yes, he's a tank, he's unstoppable, well, for the most part. But with Captain America, he was more of the, like, he's a superpowered individual, but he's not as strong as some of these other guys. He's not as fast, but it was his heart, his spirit, his morality, his willingness to sacrifice himself for the good of everybody else. This is why I thought that they did the Marvel movies so well. They got Captain America right in many respects.
Especially since they had the mainly rights to it.
Yes.
When you go to the other side of the story where Fox had most of the rights for the X-Men stuff, you start realizing there's a bunch of like time hole gaps there. But
yeah, and in some cases they got the X-Men right, but they really could have fleshed it out more. Hugh Jackman I thought he was excellent as Wolverine, but like I said, it would be between probably Captain America, Wolverine, and Spider-Man may be my third, more than likely. I need to go back and really think about it because I have so many people enjoying that, so many characters. And it's amazing to think, and Incredible Hulk's also up there. He's like in top five. But it's amazing to me to think that, these characters, many of them were made, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, things like that. I think Wolverine was 70s and Spider-Man was 60s, I think, 62 or something around there. I don't remember the exact date, so forgive me. But the fact that they've endured this long.
Well, they wouldn't have endured this long without Stan Lee. Stan Lee had such a great vision for all of the Marvel comics that they progressed down a certain line. And you can see that nowadays with all the movies. DC is bombing and Marvel's going this way. It's just the way they take their characters. They don't reinvent the story or reinvent the wheel.
Right.
They're continuing along what's been successful.
That doesn't mean they hold everything true to the comic, but they try to get a lot of the spirit of them.
But you got different storylines and everything that you can head down to, and that takes me back to like the Spider-Man movies, when the ones that Sam Raimi directed.
Yeah.
In an interview that Stan Lee did about that movie, is he never thought to include Spider-Man's web ability as a genetic mutation. Which is shocking because of all the genetic mutations from the X-Men.
Right.
He never... maybe that was something he put in there for the interview just to kind of push the movie up a little bit. But that's something that Sam Raimi did in that movie so that they didn't have to worry about web cartridges.
Right. Well, and at the same time, I really, really felt that anytime I ever saw him, and I'm going back to this is the thing that you're going to hear a lot of today, if you haven't already, is it wasn't just his creative genius. It wasn't just his directional push in that way in his narrative storytelling, but it was his heart for his fans. And that, when you see the way, and I'm not going to get into all the controversies around certain things right now, but when you see the way some people treat fans nowadays when it comes to movies and how fans wish certain movies would have gone, things like that. Like I said, I don't want to get into it.
I don't think I've ever heard an ill word spoken out of Stan Lee's mouth.
I haven't
about
either.
Fans
that I know of. Yeah,
the
man could have probably had somebody who disagreed with him strongly, and he probably would have handled it, with grace. You see so many people now when there's strong disagreements, there is just hatred and bitterness. It could go both ways. It can go one way. But Stan Lee was just the gentleman of gentlemen when it came to the industry. He really was. Like, people looked up to him. He was the kind of entrepreneurial spirit, the kind of gentleman, the kind of person with class that tried his best to handle things well, at least from my perspective that I could see. Like you said, you never heard an ill word spoken by him that I ever heard.
Across my news feeds on Facebook or whatever, that before I got off social media, I never saw anything bad except for when he sold off to Disney. That's about the only thing that people saying bad stuff about him, because it was kind of like, well, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to sissify it? Are they going to
do all sorts of weird things to it? Yeah,
I'll give them props. They've done pretty well.
Yeah, they have in general. And so, yeah, again, we could go on and on and on and on about it. I love the fact that, and the one thing I really loved about him was he always said Excelsior. And that was for him, if I remember correctly, and forgive me, I haven't looked at this in some time, but I think that was his way of saying, upwards and onwards. It was like you can go upwards for higher glory, and it was like he wanted to excel at things. And if you read, I remember reading the story years ago about why he started using it, but I can't remember every detail right now. But I just love the fact that he would use that, and it would just be such an uplifting thing he'd say.
Every TV show he did.
Excelsior!
Who Wants to Be a Superhero? To they had one about extraordinary things that humans can do, kind of like a Ripley's Believe It or Not type thing. But yeah, he did use that in pretty much everything. It was kind of like his little motto.
Yeah, and I think the hardest thing for me was knowing that I think it was last year he lost his wife. She passed. And
I missed that.
Yeah, I think it was last year when she passed, and it seemed like
that probably. With
it may have led to some of this.
That probably. Who knows what other health problems? But usually, when you lose a loved one like that, especially married couples, one of them's usually gonna follow pretty soon.
Yeah. The other thing is the fact that when it came down to it, it amazed me at 95 years old. I heard a story actually even today that there was an air show that was put on within the last year or two or so. And they said, we have a special guest, and it was Stan Lee piloting his own jet.
What?
I don't remember if it might have been him piloting. I don't know. But he comes off of a jet, and he was like promoting Avengers. And at 94 years old, man, he's just like, who's going to do that at 94 years old normally,
There's very few people.
And again, I have to check into that story because I just heard about it, so I can't verify it, but I heard that, and I was just like,
stay tuned for updates.
Yeah. But I just think it's so cool because he would attend to conventions. Even I've heard stories about him being exhausted in his 90s, and he still would stay there longer to smooze with the fans, man. He would sign autographs. He would spend time with people. He really and truly loved the fans. He really and truly loved the creative spirit that went behind all of this stuff that we enjoy now in the board game hobby and video games and movies. So much of what you're seeing, we really have to tie a lot of that back to him. And a lot of people started their career in comic books and everything else because they were inspired by Stan Lee. People who were inspired to go into gaming design and things of that nature because they were inspired by the way Stan Lee did things. And I was hearing stories of all stripes today about that. People that said I was mostly directly inspired by him. So we have to pay tribute to him. And we say Godspeed to you, Stan. We hope you're in a better place now. We just thank you so much for all the wonderful years, for our childhoods, and how much you did for just fans around the world. And the fact that I can't think of an ill thing to either say about you or that I've heard you ever say about someone else, like in seriously malicious ways. He just was an amazing man. And, he wasn't perfect, right? Nobody is. But I just think he's done so much to push the hobby forward, to push creativity forward, and we just thank you.
He was really just, he stayed in there and was a creative source for the Marvel movies. I think without him, the Marvel movies would not be what they are today.
Yeah.
It's kind of like DC doesn't have that, whereas Marvel had that. So we just see what to come as far as Marvel movies, and hopefully they stay to Stan Lee's dream. Well,
Stan, we love you. We're going to sign off, and we're both going to say, Excelsior! You have a blessed day, and game
comic away.